Pile of Shame, an Ork Story by Tom Zimbardo. Irlax and his companions approached the old scrapyard warily. The light was fading and the wind that coursed through the dry valley caused old iron wind chimes to creak and sing. In the distance, they could see some scarecrows hanging limply on a chain-link fence. The scarecrows were made out of dead orcs.
I told you he was eccentric,
muttered Irlax to himself as much to his companions.
Eccentric? He's made scarecrows out of dead orcs. That is not eccentric. That is irrevocably insane.
Rizgum snapped back.
I don't think it's a good idea, boss. We should go back to the tribe. I don't care what loot and gubbins he's got.
Well, I ain't scared.
Tugug snorted.
This old looter's just trying to scare us.
He's succeeding in scaring me,
Rizgum interrupted.
Yeah, but that means he can't fight to keep his loot. If he could, he'd just crump any orcs what try to take it. Nah, I ain't scared.
Tugug continued.
Be careful,
warned Irlax.
They says he sets booby traps.
Booby traps?
Sneered Tugug patronisingly as he stomped ahead of his companions towards the scrapyard, taunting them as he looked over his shoulder.
Do you think that Tugug is scared of booby traps? I as a goth. I has killed hundreds of orcs with me bare hands, and I has...
A small clicking sound underneath Tugug's boot was followed by a large
kaboom!
Irlax and Rizgum watched as a sudden large explosion launched Tugug about 100 feet into the air. Irlax and Rizgum watched as what remained of his body went up, 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 and then down, 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 splattering them with blood and his body parts. Irlax just about had time to open a battered old umbrella to protect him from the worst of it. Rizgum was less lucky.
He's killed Tugug, boss. He's not right in the head. They says he's an headbanger, and he eats orcs in grots. They says...
We gotta go in, Rizgum.
Irlax responded calmly.
There is a war on, and they says this old Deathskull has got loads of tanks and stormers just sitting there waiting.
I don't care about the loot, boss,
Rizgum said, quaking in his boots.
I don't want to end up dead on this fence. I was too young to become a scarecrow on some mad looter's collection of bones and scrap. I was... Ah!
Irlax knew that the younger orc needed to calm down and had clobbered him with a large wrench.
We is going in. If we follow the tracks of his truck, we know there's no landmines there. There is a war on, and we need every orc we can get.
Okay then, boss.
Rizgum sulked as his boss prodded him forward with a large extendable stick he had just drawn from his jacket.
That's right. Now, you go first.
By the time Irlax and Rizgum got to the centre of the scrapyard, night had fallen. All around them were the sounds of chirping glow squigs, which looked eerily like eyes in the darkness. Ramshackle wind chimes and the creaking of an old rusty gate added to the ambience. But the scrapyard was otherwise silent. The only light they had was a flickering flashlight which had been duct taped under the end of Irlax's shotgun. Rizgum was holding onto his slugger with both hands, jumping at every shadow or collapsing pile of trash. All around them piles of bare metal and plascrete were piled high above their heads, balanced precariously as if threatening to fall on them at any moment. In the centre of the scrapyard was a clearing, full of long abandoned half-built machines. In the very centre was the wreckage of an ancient rusty land raider. Its tracks had long been removed and a chimney had been added from which they could smell wood smoke rising, along with the faint aroma of fried squigs. An old boarding ramp that now served as a door was outlined with faint firelight spilling from within, hinting that the old raider was occupied.
See?
Irlax gestured.
That's where he lives. Go knock on his door.
Rizgum pointed at himself, as if to say, Me? He then realised that with Tugug being nothing but cold, dead chunks, there was no other orcs for Irlax to command. Plucking up his courage, he clung onto his slugger with an iron grip and gingerly approached the old land raider shack with an attempt at stealth, trying to copy the tactics he had seen the Bloodaxe commandos practice as he drilled and trained. His efforts at sneakiness were cut short when he tripped over a pile of trash, caused a small avalanche of scrap metal, and fell into a large crate of rubber ducks which, unfortunately for Rizgum, were of the squeaky variety, beloved by attack squigs across the galaxy. Irlax sighed as his minion slowly extracted himself from the crate of squeaky squig toys, cursing and trying to salvage what was left of his dignity. Dusting himself down, Rizgum then approached the door stealthily again, as if the element of surprise was not long gone. Tentatively, he reached out to the metal door and knocked on it gently. There was no reply.
He's not in, boss,
hissed Rizgum in a fierce whisper.
We'd better go home.
Knock again.
commanded Irlax with exasperation. Rizgum scaredly knocked on the door for a second time, but there was still no response.
Not on it properly, you dogger!
Irlax barked. Rizgum relented and hammered the butt of his slugger against the metal door before scampering away like a grot playing knock and run.
Go away!
Came a disinterested voice from within the shack.
We's on important business.
Irlax yelled.
From the Warboss. I don't care if you's on important business from Gork and Zog and Mork. Go away!
Irlax shrugged before strolling up to the boarding ramp door and tossing a stick bomb through a small gap and into the shack. The reaction was immediate.
Why,
The old Deathskull Mek cried as he dashed out of the shack, tripped on the decking outside of his shack and half fell, half dived to the floor, clutching his hands over his head to protect himself from the explosion, which never came. Irlax laughed and picked up his unexploded stick bomb.
So, this is the great Mek Kubbnutz Blue Skull,
Rizgum taunted the old mech that was face down in the dust.
builder of the wastelands, keeper of the Death Dread graveyard. He don't look that scary to me, boss. He's just an orc, and a scrawny one at that.
Irlax said nothing, as the old mech slowly rolled himself over, hands rising into the air as he squinted in the brightness of Irlax's flashlight.
So,
The old orc spoke.
as they sent you to kill me,
Those is not my orders.
Irlax replied.
what is your orders then? What did they tell ya?
They said that you had gone completely insane,
Irlax replied.
and that your methods were unsound.
The old mech looked around the scrapyard at his years of half-built and monstrous creations.
Is me methods unsound?
He finally asked.
Frankly, Blue Skull, I don't see no method.
Irlax told him plainly. Mad Mek Kubbnutz Blue Skull of the Deathskull's clan slowly rose to his feet. Dusting himself down, he waved for Irlax to shine the flashlight elsewhere, which Irlax complied with, lowering his shotgun a little so the old mech wasn't dazzled by it.
No method?
The mad mech asked incredulously.
That's because they has no appreciation for classic tanks. None of yous youngins do.
Irlax sighed.
It's not that we don't appreciate your old tanks.
He began.
No, it is that.
Blue Skull interrupted.
That one behind you is a Mark 1 Mars Pattern Land Raider. They don't make them like that anymore.
Irlax glanced over his shoulder at the rusty old shack that had perhaps once been the pride of a Space Marine chapter.
That
He gestured over his shoulder.
is a rusty old shack.
Snorted Blue Skull.
It's a classic tank. All of them is. Classic tanks, classic cans. I've even got classic submarine. All of them is made out of prime metal, not this plastic crap that is making tanks out of nowadays.
You can call him whatever you likes.
Irlax snapped back, clearly not impressed.
The problem is you never finishes any of them.
I was going to finish them one day.
Blue Skull parried.
I was just waiting for the right bits. The right bits are hard to come by nowadays. Some of them always snipe them at the last second every time there's an auction. Or the scalpers gets them first.
I don't want to hear about your bits.
Irlax barked back, angrier now.
You never finishes anything. Every project you start just sits here for years and years, half done, unpainted and getting rusty. You is an order.
I is not in order.
Blue Skull snapped back petulantly.
I is a sophisticated collector. This is the finest collection of classic tanks this side of the Beneb sector. This
entire scrapyard is nothing but a pile of shame.
Shouted Irlax.
it is a pile of glory.
Roared Blue Skull.
Yeah? Well, you's gonna have to sell it.
Irlax told him plainly.
You bought it all on credit, and you owes 5,000 and triddly teeth to the Bank of Gork and Mork. Don't make us send in the dentist to collect your debts.
Suddenly Blue Skull looked afraid. All orcs feared the dentists, who were among the most depraved and insane of mad dogs.
I can pay them.
Blue Skull cried.
Next month, I've got a massive commission coming in.
You don't never finish them. Even the bad moons is fed up with waiting. Nah, the Warboss is requisitioning your scrapyard and all your half-finished crap for the war effort. After the Bank of Gork and Mork has taken their share days.
It was Rizgum that saw him move first. The crazy old mech had lulled Irlax into a false sense of security with his grouchy rant. There was a sudden blur of movement as the older orc charged straight at Rizgum and Irlax screaming at the top of his voice.
You may take me tanks, but you'll never take me freedom. Waaagh!
Rizgum pulled the trigger on his custom slugger and fired bullet after bullet straight into the chest of Kubbnutz Blue Skull, but the crazy old orc merely laughed.
Yous cannot hurt me, you doggers. I've got a super cyborg body.
Rizgum watched in horror as multiple appendages armed with kill saws, drills and burny things unfolded themselves from the mad mech's back as he advanced towards him, laughing like a maniac. Irlax merely took aim with his shotgun and fired a nitro-powered face-eating squig straight into the crazy mech's mouth. Just for a moment, it appeared that the mech might have actually swallowed the squig whole, but then there was a kind of small explosion inside his super cyborg body, and he fell to the ground like a piece of junk, surrounded by his beloved half-built machines.
I told you you were eccentric.
Irlax said for the second time that day.
A Pile of Shame, with an Ork story written by Tom Zimbardo and narrated by the Drunken Ork, published by Waaagh. We hope you've enjoyed this program. Ta-ta!